Alexander Rozhenko. Alexander Rozhenko. Alexander Rozhenko.
Poor kid.
Alexander Rozhenko.
We feel bad.
Someone please take that sample and give us a remix. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Back.
Hello! Welcome to Into the Wormhole with Larissa and Lauren. I am Larissa Maestro, your captain, and here is my number one, Lauren Lowen, with a quick bit of housekeeping.
Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, I was telling Larissa that I made a mistake in one of our previous episodes, and it's been gnawing at me, and she actually knows what it is, but I want to go on the record here. Because when we were talking to Kyle Jaro. See, look. Okay, now I have to correct that. So now let me correct that. And then I will also correct another name. Not a name, although we were talking about David Cronenberg.
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, this is actually kind of like a callback to when we were talking about Threshold, and I screwed up his name. Then, poor David Cronenberg, every time he comes up, I get something wrong. I got his name right when we were talking to Kyle, but then I goofed up and said he did The Thing, and I heard that and I was like, that's not the right movie. And I felt so embarrassed because I know that John Carpenter did The Thing.
It's okay.
I know. It's just been gnawing at me. I'm like, everyone hates me now and thinks I'm stupid.
No one hates you and no one thinks you're stupid. There are literally like millions of movies in the world.
I know. I just thought like, oh, of course, that's the way my brain works. But yeah,
It's
I was
okay.
like, I'm going to go on the record next time and get my honor back.
You have honor.
Okay.
This is not a good day to die. You have honor.
It's a beautiful day. I don't want to die today.
It is a beautiful day.
It's quite nice. Larissa, what are we talking about today?
Something I know absolutely nothing about. I know about Star Trek. I know nothing about parenting.
Aw. Yes, we're talking about Star Trek parents today. And by that we mean parents in Star Trek, not parents who watch Star Trek like me. This is not an episode about me. But you know what? You know what, though? Because you are a super aunt.
I am a super aunt.
You are, and you've been a teacher. I think there's like some paternal instincts there.
Yes, and I'm a cat parent.
Yes, which we've talked about.
So I relate to Data and Spot.
Well, but also I think when you really get into it, you proposed this idea, and I had some obvious characters come in my head. But then once I really got into it, I was like, oh my God, there's a lot of non-traditional parents, like Odo and the baby Changeling, and even his, father, Dr. Mora.
Dr. Mora.
And Data makes Lal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is going to be an interesting episode because it's going to be more than just your traditional, child and parent. There's a lot of those, kind of relationships that, I mean, God, even Data, like his quote unquote mom shows up, and yeah. So I think we'll get into some of those corners of Star Trek parents.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of want to let you lead here because you're the mom.
Oh, gosh.
I'm not a mom, technically. Cat mom.
Oh, gosh. What do I say?
Do you have anyone that you would like to start with?
I mean, I will start by saying this, that watching Star Trek episodes as a parent is different now.
Yeah.
And it's weird because, you and I grew up, especially with TNG. And I find that, when you go through those periods of like heavy rediscovery and reviewings of, like watching TNG when we were 8 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then, being more like young adults, like watching it again in college. And then like now watching it as like an older adult, but now I have children of my own.
Mm-hmm.
And that just means like I'm crying at things I never cried at before. I might be like, oh, that's so sad. But, when Troi loses the little light child, Ian, and, that episode's not exactly like a favorite episode.
No, we don't like that episode.
But it's still like it tears me apart. Or even when Data says goodbye to Lol, and
oh my God, that's just I'm gone.
Yes, yes. I mean, that was always sad for me, but like I get emotional in ways now that I never did before. And it really,
Well, maybe I can bring up one then that I can relate to, which is Lwaxana Troi and Deanna Troi. I feel like that is the parent child. I love that Star Trek has adult children and adult parents, showing what that relationship is like, and showing, you know, a different like part of life for parent and child. I feel like on TV we see a lot of children, like young children or teenagers and parents, and that relationship. And I love seeing like the continuation, like what happens when your child is now an adult and you have to treat them like an adult or continue calling them little one for the rest of their life.
Yes. Also, for the record, I notice that I call my kids, especially when they're really young, but I still call them little one. Yeah, and it has nothing to do with that. It's just a coincidence. But every time I say
really
it,
sweet.
I do pause a little bit. I call them lots of different names, including Little Dumpling, Jelly Bean. But sometimes I'll be like, Little One, what's wrong? And I'll just have like a flash of Lwaxana Troi in my head. Yeah, I mean, that is funny. I watched a lot of fun episodes for this.
Yeah.
And like I said, you start to think of the obvious ones like Lwaxana Troi, or, you know, Cisco and Jaco.
I mean, we got to talk about them.
Yes. But then you start to be like, oh, shit, like Julian from Deep Space Nine, his parents show up. And
yikes.
One of my favorite episodes is the Icarus Factor from season 2 of TNG with Kyle Riker, which is William Riker's dad.
Yeah, again, an adult child and their adult parent.
Yes. Oh, that episode. I love it. It's one of my favorites, but it's also kind of fucked up. But
yes. Excellent costumes in that episode.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And Kyle Riker's like space onesie. But yeah, Sports. So yeah, like should we start with Lwaxana, or like,
I mean,
how do you want to do this?
I brought up Lwaxana because I feel like she is the most famous parent from Star Trek. She's the mom.
Yes, and she's in a lot of episodes for being a guest star.
Yeah. And she is like literally the actress, the mother of Star Trek.
Yes.
You know, Majel Barrett Roddenberry, the queen of Star Trek. So it's, you know, she operates within the universe on multiple levels. She's our mom. She reminds me of my actual mom. She's also, you know, got this, you know, place as Gene Roddenberry's wife, the voice at the computer, all the, you know, she is the mom. I love her character so much. We have talked about her on the podcast before, but there's something about mothers and daughters and the expectations that mothers can sometimes put on daughters and that daughters can sometimes put on mothers, especially when they are getting older, and the nuances of that relationship that I feel like are shown so beautifully on the show. Like that episode Dark Page, like I talked about that episode with my sister on this show, and we both were just like weeping the whole time. You know, there's like a closeness that I feel, and that I think a lot of people feel with their mothers, and also a distance at the same time. And that is it's very like singular to that relationship with your mother.
So I'm curious because I remember you mentioning a few things about Lwaxana Troi, and it might be the Dark Page podcast episode that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But I'm really curious because I met your mom. First of all, both Larissa and I feel like come from awesome families, and we love our parents and they love us, and so we're really lucky.
Yeah.
And your mom's awesome. I think the cutest thing I ever saw is when she brought like a giant video camera that's probably way too old, like a big one that your parents used to record soccer games in the 90s with like a tripod, and she couldn't figure out how to flip the image. She was recording you playing, and she couldn't figure out how to flip the image on the screen, so she just flipped the camera, thinking that it wouldn't.
Oh my God, I don't think anyone. Mom. Problem-solving technology she doesn't understand.
Which is going to be me in 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
But when I'm always curious when I hear you or you and your sister talk about how you see Troi, Lwaxana Troi and your mom, because as an outsider and someone who obviously wasn't raised by that person and had that dynamic, I'm just not privy to that. I'm just like, that's really interesting. I would have never figured that because Lwaxana Troi's, parenting style seems so sometimes obnoxious and overbearing. And I don't, at least to me, so that's what I think of. And I don't see your mom being that way.
Yeah. I mean, of course, like everyone's experience with their own family is different than what it looks like from the outside,
Yeah.
And for me, when I look at Lwaxana and the way she communicates with Deanna, there's a lot of like cultural context there. And my mother is from the Philippines. I was born here in the States, and I grew up with Filipino culture around me a lot, but I'm an American person, and there are different ways that Filipinos communicate that not that I rejected, but that I was like, or can you just say it? Can you just like not do that? Or can you just like try to understand? And my mom, a lot of the time is, or would be like, ugh. There was a lot of like, it's fine.
So that's
crazy.
crazy.
A lot of like, come on, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
So that's exactly like Lwaxana Troi talking telepathically.
Yes.
And Troi being like, Mom, don't do that.
It's
like
rude.
Yes. So
like, you're being rude. And my mom like, no, I'm not being rude. They know it's fine. I'm like, they don't actually know.
Oh my God. Okay. I never thought about that.
So there's that kind of stuff. There's also this like boisterousness that Lwaxana has that my mom also has. The very like the social butterfly, enjoying being the center of attention, enjoying telling a captivating story to a large group of people. And as a child, sometimes that would be embarrassing because she would be telling a story about me being naked in a bathtub or something, and that's sort of normal, like parent stuff, like, oh, Mom, come on, like these are my coworkers. And she's like, yeah, but they're also my friends now, like that's that sort of stuff. It's almost like it's her vibe that feels very much like my mom, and it's one of the reasons I fucking love Lwaxana Troi.
Oh my God.
We love her.
And that's really interesting because every time I have really interacted with your mom, it's been more of a huge social event.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of shows.
Yeah.
So that might also explain why I've never really seen that part of your mom, because even though you said she is sort of a social butterfly, that's still like a very big setting.
Yes.
So I've always had a wonderful time talking to her and stuff like that, but I've never seen her maybe 100% in her comfort zone where she is more Lwaxana.
Yeah. And she can be very much.
Okay.
We love her.
So
love her.
I can't tell you who my mom is, but I can tell you who my dad is.
Oh, let's hear it.
Okay. My dad's actually a combination of two. Maybe this will be a good segue into some of the characters. So
Who's your daddy, Lauren?
Oh God, that sounds wrong. No,
Sorry. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm sorry to everyone who just heard me say that. I'm so sorry.
I really have. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine. Like
I
the idea of calling a romantic partner daddy. I'm like, no,
I know, I can't.
No.
I can't. No. I call Dan daddy when I'm talking to him about the cats.
Oh God.
Like he's the
right?
he's the daddy to the cats. He's not mine.
I'm working. Go bother daddy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, like that. Yeah.
Okay, so my dad is a combination of two Star Trek parents. My dad is Worf's dad, combined with the swag of Kyle Riker.
Oh,
yeah. Which I'm blanking on. I mean, it's
Roshenko.
Yeah.
Dimitri.
Is that what it is? Or
that's his brother.
S?
That's his human brother.
Okay, Worf
that kidnaps
parents.
all those people to the holodeck in that one episode, and then
Sergei. Yeah. Oh, another name I butchered. Okay, let me go on the record. Okay. And Helena, that's his mom. Okay, so there's that wonderful episode where they're both getting a tour of the ship. This is Worf's parents, and his dad's like, I have all the maps and specs in my house, and
so cute.
And Worf's just like, Dad, Geordi's very busy. He like, come on, let's move along. And
He's
so
the chief engineer. He can't give you a tour. No.
Yes. So I feel like my dad is very earnest and very excited about things like that.
That's really sweet.
Yes, and he's my parents are both big cheerleaders of mine. So my dad's really sweet in that way and very like just gets excited about things. And then when Kyle Riker, and we'll have to talk a little bit about the episode, The Icarus Factor, but there's this great scene where Kyle Riker in that space onesie goes in the 10 forward, and everyone's like, Kyle Riker, I haven't seen you in years. And they get up and they shake his hand, and, you know, Kyle Riker's just doing the rounds, and, you know, and I'm like, that's my dad. My dad has to walk into a room and he's friends with everyone, or he becomes friends with everyone. You've met him, but I think it's always in large settings. But he's just very charismatic. He's not an asshole like Kyle Riker. But I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's definitely some of my dad right there.
Oh, isn't it nice to like see sort of like people that you love like in a show that you love, you know, like to watch a show and be like, that character reminds me of my dad. I love it. So
one thing I'm really curious about is obviously we're going to talk about the characters, but like who you think, you know,
who's the best,
who's the worst? Better parents, who's the worst? I mean, Beverly's a mom, so I know. I'm guessing Beverly's going to be your top. My guess it's that or Cisco.
I mean, they're sort of tied up there for me.
Okay.
Bev is like special to me in all the ways. Like I just love her character from top to bottom, left to right.
Yeah. She's your doctor. She's your boss. Now she's your mom. Now she's your best friend.
She's my best friend. I love her. She's so kind and loving, and she doesn't like just let Wesley run wild. She's still like, she gives him freedom, but she's still protective, which makes sense. They're on a fucking starship. Yeah. But there is more. The thing about Cisco and about Ben and Jake is that there's more material there. Like he's the first captain to have a child on Star Trek, you know, a child who's around and like hanging out all the time and just like on the ship as a civilian, on the station as a civilian. And like we get to watch Jake grow up from like kind of being like preteen age to like being an adult at the end of the show and being abandoned.
Again, both single parents.
About.
Bev and
both
Cisco,
single parents, both widowed parents, and I've actually been. I go through times where I choose a different Star Trek series to just have on in the background when I'm doing chores and stuff like that, and I've been putting on DS9 the past month, and man, if there are not just some like beautiful, tender, gorgeous moments between Captain Cisco and Jake, it's so lovely. And I've heard interviews with Sarah Lofton where he talks about how Avery Brooks really was a father figure for him as a person on set, how they developed a really close relationship. You can feel it when they look at each other, just like when he will like kiss Jake on the head, you know, like a teenager, like a father kissing his teenage son on the head and his son being like, yeah, it's my dad, you know, like they have like really beautiful, vulnerable conversations with each other. Not just like Cisco isn't just like, I'm the dad and I'm the strong dad. Like he talks to Jake about his feelings. Like he tells Jake like, you know, real stuff, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, and that relationship has been written about and analyzed in so many ways because, you know, first of all, you have a single dad, you have a single black dad, which was, you know, something that doesn't always get positive portrayal in media and so forth and culture.
We know that Avery Brooks had a lot to do with that.
Yes, he did. In fact, we talked about it. But one of the things was at the end, he wanted to leave the door open that Cisco could come back. He said, I do not want to leave
I'm not
my
gonna
son.
Really abandon my son.
Yeah, I'm not going to really die. We're going to keep it a little vague. And that was a request by Avery Brooks. But yeah, you're right. You know, there's, especially for Cisco to be very much an authority position. I mean, he's
and
he's
also
the
like
captain.
he's also at war for like half of the series,
right?
You know, and like still like wanting to protect his son, but knowing that he can't protect him all the time. There's I don't remember which episode it's in, but it's when Jake decides that he's a journalist and he gets a job writing for the Starfleet Gazette or whatever it's called, and he's trying to do his job, and Ben is mad about it. He's like, he does not like it, and he comes to a point in their conversation about it where he's like, I guess I can't prevent you from doing your job.
Yeah,
you know? Like he like still is like, I am your dad, but I'm also a Starfleet officer, and you are part of the press, and I respect that. I'm not like he doesn't ever go out of his way to overly control Jake.
Yes, and he obviously cares about him and is very warm to him. And same with Crusher. Deeply. Yeah, it was just really nicely written. It just felt very genuine, and they both feel very secure in the relationship. They're figuring out things together, you know, especially with the loss of you know, the mom.
Yeah,
and
Jennifer.
So yeah, and then when is it Cassidy Yates?
Yeah,
you know, when she comes in too, that's nice because
Jake sets them up.
That's right. Yeah,
which is cute.
So that's that relationship. Like I said, it's been analyzed such a bit.
Yeah.
That's a very positive one, and it shows up a lot. And it's also fun to see like him and Nog grow up together.
Mm-hmm.
And Nog's dad, Rom, is another like favorite Star Trek parent. He's also very supportive.
Nog is in my top 5. If I had to rank, Nog is definitely in my top 5, just because he is so proud. He's one of those, because like some parents are like Jake and Ben are like buddies, but also parent and child, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But Nog and Rom is a doting father.
Mm-hmm.
With Nog, you know, like he is like when he joined Starfleet, he's like so excited. He's telling everyone about it. He's like, my son is the first Ferengi in Starfleet.
Remember when he's like, call him sir?
I know. It's so sweet. And he's also like inspired by his son too. Like it's Nog like pursuing his dreams that pushes Rom to like actually
better himself
and quit his job at Quarks and become an officer, not an officer, but he's like an engineer.
Yeah.
He starts working for
Miles, right?
Yeah. And that is like so sweet, and also like something that you don't see much, I don't think. Like you see like children being inspired by their parents to like follow their dreams, but I feel like you don't see a parent being inspired by their child to follow their dreams like in later in their life. And that's really just so great. Also, like, we just love Rom. Like, Rom is, there's nothing wrong with Rom. Rom is perfect in every way. Yeah.
No.
I mean, speaking of Rom, though, Moogie.
Oh, Moogie. I forgot about Moogie. I mean, and this is so weird, too, because obviously the Ferengis have so many Ferengi ways of going about things.
Like the naked thing.
But also, I just saw I had to watch Dr. Bashir, I presume.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one of Bashir's parents, but it also has Rom and Lita. And so Quark brings up like you had to marry, your wife and sign a 5-year contract, and because you wanted a child. And so like all these things in life that we see as very emotional or around love and stuff is very, very much a business transaction for Ferengi, of course. So where was I going with that? Just to see like how different it is. And then you have Moogie, who again kind of plays on that weird Ferengi dynamic.
Yeah. She's definitely more doting to Rom than she is to Quark. And we all know why. It's because Quark's a dick. He's a dick.
Yeah, and Rom's a little bit of a pushover.
Yeah.
It's just...
And he's more affectionate.
Yes.
And like softer as a person. Like Quark, what an asshole.
I do know families like that. I'm not going to say any names, but where it's like there was always just one kid who always was rocking the boat. no matter what. With
But
the
she
parent.
still shows a lot of like love and care for Quark, even though she knows that he's a dick.
But you're my dick.
Yeah, she still obviously loves him. I love Moogie. I also love the scoldy sort of thing she's got. She's always like shaking her finger at someone.
Quark.
Quark. I told you.
I think there's gonna be a lot of impressions.
I know. Sorry.
Okay. Who else should we go? Because, like I said, there's actually a lot.
I mean, we're like going through DS9 now.
Do we need to stay in Deep Space Nine?
We can talk about Julian's parents.
Yes, I'm interested because did you see this episode lately?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. This is Dr. Bashir, I presume, which is where we find out that Jules, as they call him, is actually. I mean, he's like he says, he's like unnatural, not of nature, but he's. Yeah. What would the word be?
Genetically modified.
Yeah, we're talking about eugenics.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is illegal in the Federation.
Yes. Keith was confused. He was like, why is this such a big deal? And
I
paused it. I'm like, okay, let me explain this. And then the hologram explained it at the end of the episode. But yeah, we basically find out that, Julian is been altered. And so he's like super smart and he has amazing hand-eye coordination.
He's really good at darts.
Yes. Which also, we'll get into this, but that actor, Siddig Fidel is what he goes by now, right?
Siddig El Fadil.
Damn it. Names.
Names are hard, man.
Well, he changed what he goes by, too.
Yeah.
So I always want to call him Alexander.
He whitewashed his name early in his career because, people think it's hard. It's too hard to pronounce my name. I might as well change it. It's a whole thing that is actually.
Oh yeah.
It's becoming more common for people to not do that anymore,
yes.
Which is great, which is wonderful.
I've read some really interesting interviews and articles where he's talked about that, and not only in Hollywood but just like in general resumes.
Yeah.
But
and his name is very long. Like
yes.
look at his Wikipedia page. His name is it is an epic name.
Well, he did not like this episode. He hated this development because, and I understand why. Because like it's in season 5, I think.
It's early. It feels kind of early, doesn't it?
Well, the problem is like, it completely undermines
not early, sorry.
everything about Bashir's character. Like Bashir's a cocky overachiever, a little too eager, thinks a little too highly of himself. And this kind of, like I said, undermines it a little bit because now it's like all that, desire and ambition and stuff. It's like, oh, so you were altered and actually, if anything, you were probably holding back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he didn't like that. And so it's just, it was something where it's like, I'm sure it was cool at the time, but the lasting effects it had on that character.
Yeah.
But his parents, okay, guys. So his parents, I was thinking about this. He was not so bright, I guess. And at age 6, they illegally took him to a planet to get altered and stuff. And I'm like, what is the equivalent of that today? And the closest I could come up with is all the celebrities that were getting their kids into college and like paying off admissions officers or paying people to secretly take tests for their kids. And that's the closest I could get to is like, what is the equivalent of someone today being really well-meaning, but like, dude, that's illegal.
Yeah.
And sketchy.
Well, and it's also like an indication of extreme privilege to our society. I feel like the Bashirs, though, it's not portrayed that way. They are like, his dad is like a blue-collar worker. Like they're not like super rich people who are like, we're above everything and we're going to just make our kid the fanciest kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, this seems more like they thought they had no other choice to make sure that their kid's life was better than they thought it was going to be with his learning disability that he had.
But did he really have one? I mean,
right?
That's kind
or was
of he
just a normal kid?
That's kind of the point that Jules brings up is like, I was only 6. And
yeah,
I was
like you don't even know what he's going to be like if he's having trouble at 6. Like, it just means that, yeah. So it's,
This episode is interesting because I was watching it with Keith, and Keith was saying, I don't get why Julian's being such an ass. Like, what's going on? And I don't know if the writers quite, they were trying to do a lot through subtext and like the casual conversations between Julian and his parents. But what I think they're trying to get across is the fact that his dad, like you said, is kind of this blue collar, or just like this person that's a little bit always
rough around the edges.
I think he's like ashamed of the reality. Like when he sees Cisco, he's like, oh, now I'm into landscape design and I love that my creations will be around for generations after I'm gone. But then you find out that he's not actually working as that. He's just making some drawings and hoping somebody will pick it up.
He's very concerned about
image,
appearance and image and how people see him and perceive him. And that feels like it makes a lot of sense that he would project that onto his child.
Well, Julian is the personification of that dynamic. If the dad is always kind of telling these half-truths and is hiding it because he's ashamed, I think Julian sees like, you were ashamed of me and you also had to be deceitful with me because you were ashamed of me. Just like you were ashamed, like when he talks about being and I worked on the freighter or whatever it is. It's like, Dad, you were a steward for 3 months.
Yeah, like this does not line up. I mean, it's also like the whole concept of consent too. Like a 6-year-old cannot consent to this. Like this was not his choice, and he was robbed of that ability to choose to live as he was born, you know? So that also comes into play. The like, how is it okay? When is it okay for like parents to choose those kinds of things for their children? And it's kind of not. I mean, it's interesting talking about this episode because there's a lot of shit going on in local governments with trans rights right now. And a lot of that feels like this in a way where like the child needs something, or the child is saying like, this is who I am, and parents being like, or parents or lawmakers being like, no, you don't get to have the thing that you are or be the thing that you are, you know? That idea of like consent as a child, you know?
Yeah.
So that feels like a slight mirror in the past, you know, in a way.
Yeah, and we've talked about that quite a bit, actually.
Yeah. Yee.
Especially with Deep Space Nine. Yikes.
Yeah. I mean, DS9 continues to be like the most relevant Star Trek, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like every time I go back to it, I'm like, holy shit, y'all. Really? In 1999, you were dang.
You were closer than you thought.
You were really closer than you thought.
I didn't even know.
Totally true. But yeah, man, his parents, his dad especially, like just like gets under my skin. And he's supposed to.
Yes.
He's supposed to get under your skin. He's supposed to make you really mad. Yeah, Julian's parents, man.
And then like Keiko and O'Brien are parents.
That's true. Oh, and then there's that episode where like Molly goes into that
prehistoric,
that like wormhole thing, the like
vortex, and
then comes back out, and she's been living alone for 16 years and stuff. That episode makes me weep.
Yeah, that one actually affects me more than I want to admit.
Yeah, it's so sad. There's also the whole, and we talked about this when we talked about our pregnancy. In our pregnancy episode, the Kira and Miles and Keiko like triad
unit, because
when Kira has to carry
Keiko's, carry Hiro,
Kuryoshi.
Yes, because and then that's another kind of non-traditional parent where like Kira is a surrogate, parent, and we've talked about like that relationship she has with their son, and you know how she kind of in that episode. That's the same episode where Odo has the little changeling baby, basically, and he's dealing with his feelings for the changeling, but also wrestling through Dr. Mora, which was an episode I really wanted to watch, but I ran out of time. So I'm kind of going on like big strokes, but
I watched that one recently because I've just had DS9 on, and it is such an emotional episode. You know, Dr. Mora really plays this like estranged parent role in Odo's, timeline in DS9, and I find myself like when we're first introduced to him, like really not liking him and really being mad at him for like poking and prodding at Odo. And this episode really like adds so much depth and nuance to him as a character and also his relationship with Odo. The shit with parents and children where like as a young adult you'd be like, fuck you, man. I know what I'm doing. Like, you don't know, like, you know, the way that we feel when we're told what to do, or we're told, like, this is the way to do it, and we reject it. You know, we reject that authority. And we're, you know, in a place where we're not able to hear other opinions, especially when they're coming from our parents. And then the realization when we're older that they were right about something that we fought them on, you know? And I feel like all of us who have any sort of relationship with our parents have had those moments with our parents. So that is so relatable when he's like, I mean, you can keep just like talking to it, but the only way I was able to get you to do the thing was by giving you a little shock, and I did not hurt you. You are here. You know, it's like you have to fall down, you know, to get back up thing.
Yeah.
Even though there's like an element of like, is it the torture though? We don't know. It's
like
it's
well, we're
still
not into spanking.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. It does feel like that. You're right. It feels like spanking.
But there's some sort of like the disciplining and like tough love factor to it.
Yeah.
And just like sometimes, like my youngest is definitely going through the terrible twos, and sometimes I just have to make sure she is safe when she gets in these tantrums, and just like put her somewhere safe where she can't hit her head, and I just stay right there. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna let you work this out.
Yeah.
Mom's here, but
yeah, and that is also healthy too. I mean, there's also like I see this with my nephew. I see this with other family kids, you know, that are in our family. Like, my nephew is very boisterous and has a lot of energy. And sometimes he has to bonk his head to know that if you're going to move your body that way, you're probably going to bonk your head.
Yes.
And it's going to feel like this. And just to like understand consequences, or to like understand his own body and how his body moves. And that's the understanding the body stuff, I think, is what is happening with the Changeling shit in this episode. The Changeling is perfectly content to remain goo and will not do anything unless provoked, unless like prodded to do a thing, you know? And it's interesting to like, I mean, I still have like issues with the torture possibilities, but like it is true that like in order to grow, we have to experience pain.
And I think that it's not literal pain. It's right. It's that discomfort of sometimes letting a kid, even when you say like, don't throw your toy or it's going to break, but you just have to let them do it, and they have to see that it will break, and that's why you don't throw your toys, even though it upsets them, you know, kind of thing. So maybe that's a better analogy. Yeah. But yeah, and Dr. Mora, just for the record, didn't even know Odo was a sentient being. Like, he's just kind of like doing all these tests, and then one day, I forget what Odo does, but he's just like,
he hit him back.
Something like that.
Yeah. He smacked him or
and it's
something.
like, oh shit.
Oh shit, it's alive. Yeah. That episode is in turns for me like goofy as fuck and very moving. Like all of the stuff with Renee Auberjonois, just with the goo, where he's just like talking to the goo and like looking at the goo, and it's so cartoony.
Like
it's so cartoony and ridiculous. But like the moments with him and Dr. Mora together, are really beautiful.
And let's be honest, it's one of the few times that we get a minor guest star like Dr. Mora coming back. There's 2 episodes of him, and I wish they did that more.
Yeah.
Case in point, I'm going to leave Deep Space Nine. We can come back. Mm-hmm. Case in point, Kyle Riker. I mentioned him a couple times.
Yeah.
I'm like, why did they not have a second episode with him?
Yeah, right.
Or even mention him? But,
right.
So, okay, first of all, R.I.P. because I found out that actor passed away last March. Yeah. And also, he auditioned for Picard and almost got it.
That checks out.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I see it.
And they loved him so much. They're like, how about you come back as Kyle Riker?
Yep.
So, okay. So, Kyle Riker is probably one of the worst Star Trek parents, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's bad. He's bad.
We've
talked about some of the best.
Yeah, I think we're getting to like
and now we're getting to some of the worst, man. Oh, yeah. He sucks.
Okay. Icarus Factor. Keep mentioning this episode because it is one of my go-tos. Yeah. I can't necessarily, it's one of the best.
I know you love that episode.
I love this episode. It's season 2 cheesiness. The music is just like soap opera. There's so many like,
yeah.
And we find out like Kyle Riker and Pulaski were getting it on at one point. And we have the Fun B story where Wesley is trying to figure out why Worf is grumpy. And they have the whole like pain stick holodeck thing and the famous scene where Data's like, we care for you. And Worf is like, with all due respect, be gone, sir. Just moments like that. It's a fun episode. But yeah. Okay. So if you don't know, like Riker and his parents are all happy dappy. And then when Riker is 2, his mom dies. So Riker stays with Will. I always want to say Billy. I think you should have called him Billy for some reason. But, raises him in Alaska. Sounds like he wasn't exactly always the best dad. But at age 15, Riker's 15 and his dad just like splits. And so by the time we see him in the Icarus Factor, it's supposed to be like this fun little reunion where it's like, oh, someone's going to come and brief you about the mission, Riker. How about you go in the transporter room and say hi? And it's his dad. He hasn't seen his dad in 15 years. And he's like, what the fuck? So of course he's not happy about it.
No, I wouldn't be.
The crazy thing is that I think in like Julian's episode, it's 3 years he hasn't seen them. And that to me is a more believable number.
Yeah.
Like 3 years he's on the station. He hasn't been home. Okay. He's kind of estranged from them.
Yeah.
15 years is a long time.
Yeah.
So that immediately sets it up where I'm thinking, of course he's not happy to see this man.
No, there's a 0% chance. Do they I can't remember. Do they talk about like, did he live with an aunt or other family when he was like, because at 15, you're still a child.
Yes.
Like you can't like pay your rent.
I don't even know if you have to worry about a driver.
Don't have to worry about
yeah,
rent.
Really.
It's Star Trek.
But still, it's like he's 15. Yeah, they never, I don't know. Maybe it's in a book or something,
Yeah.
But it's like 15, in today's world, you were a minor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just the fact that he comes on, he's like, oh, I heard a lot of good things about you. And like, can we talk? And it's just awkward as shit.
It is so awkward.
And that's part of the reason why this episode is so good.
Yes.
Just because of how awkward it is. But it's also just like a big flaw.
Yeah. It is like, it's so cool to me also that there is such a wide range of like good and bad parents on Star Trek.
I feel like there's definitely more conflict though, which makes sense. If you're going to have a parent show up, it's usually because there's conflict because we're writing a story. Yeah.
Yeah. But there are so many beautiful depictions of parent-child relationships on Star Trek.
Well, like Worf's parents.
Yeah. Aw, they're so sweet.
Yeah.
They're so sweet and cute. And they're like, we really tried to do our best. And they're really kind and loving.
And you mentioned before I was mom, it's like I learned how to make all the Klingon dishes.
Yeah.
And, she really tried to bend over backwards to make Worf comfortable.
Yeah.
And they tell little stories about him getting in fights in school.
Yes. I mean, they are a good example of like a positive depiction of transracial adopters.
Yeah.
That like they really did try to like keep his culture alive and make sure he knew where he came from, which is like something that a lot of people don't do currently.
Yeah. They're so sweet.
They're so sweet.
And that leads us into their...
So what happened to Worf?
What happened?
And why is he such a bad dad? Like,
oh my gosh.
He's just very not a good dad. He's very not good at dadding. I mean, it does suck that like Alexander happened and he was never told until like he's 5.
Yeah, it's like we have things to unpack with him and Kayla and yeah,
that's a whole like she had issues. Like there's a whole bunch of shit, but like man, that relationship is so painful. Like the Alexander Worf, and I have been watching DS9, so I just watched that episode, Sons and Daughters, and ouch!
I know
it's like it hurts so bad. It's like, oh,
you mean
dude,
as like a viewer or as like a person, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like
it hurts in every way. It's like, why? Like he like is kicking him off the ship. He's like being so mean to him. There's all kinds of like, because Worf sets these like high expectations for Alexander when he's a child, when he's like 7 years old or some shit.
Yeah, I think he's
to like
be
a warrior, and Dude, yikes.
Although I will say the Sons and Daughters episode, I think, but one of my favorite things is the last week, because I watched it too. I've just been going around going like, Alexander Rozhenko. Like when he introduces himself, like that kid's got swag.
No house. I have no house.
I fight for my own honor, but I just love like randomly being like Alexander Rozhenko. I just want you, Larissa, to make that like when I call, that's my ring.
Alexander Rozhenko.
Alexander Rozhenko. It's Lauren. Alexander Rozhenko.
Dude, it's so painful. That is a bad dad.
You know what? Keith and I watched what's the episode where Kayla actually dies? It's not. Is it Reunion? It is Reunion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Her first episode is called The Emissary.
Yes. Yes. So not that emissary.
No, different emissary.
Yeah. So Keith watched that with me and he was like, "That's a good Star Trek episode." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And so that's where she comes back, and
I mean, I'm still mad that she died.
Yes.
I'm still pissed about it.
Yeah, she's a great character. She's got some nice outfits in that too.
Fucking tragic mulatto shit. Just like,
that's
why?
right.
Why the fuck you gotta kill her? That's so rude.
Amazing death scene though. But yeah, like she shows up, and I'm kind of glad you brought up Kayla, because like she shows up and it's like, surprise. Yeah. When I was with you, I had a son. And
and it seems like her relationship with Alexander is really like deep and like sweet, and like she is very caring and like affectionate with him.
I've actually know somebody who this happened to, where a girlfriend showed up years later and they had like a 4-year-old, and they're like, "This is your kid." Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things where when you watch,
drama, though.
Yeah, I know, and they ended up being like an amazing dad, and that child just had their wedding, like they're a full successful, and he was an amazing father,
not Worf.
But yes, so it's easy in this TV situation where she's like, "Oh, you would make me take the oath," and be like, "That's right, she was just making sure she wouldn't have to do the oath, so she couldn't tell him." But truly, it's like, come on,
you could have told him.
Yeah, believe me, kids that young, they know what's going on.
Yeah. It's very yikesy. It's really yikesy.
Yikesy. That's a good technical term.
And then like all of the interaction, the episode where like Alexander's lying all the time.
Yes, I almost watched that one, but I didn't.
The way, and like Deanna's really trying to help, like really bad, and Worf's just like, I just remember being so frustrated because in that one there's, you know, stuff with him trying to fit in school.
Mm-hmm.
And you see this with parents too. I feel like disciplining is difficult, right? Like if you were to find out that your kid was lying to everyone at school all the time, like what do you do about that? And it seemed like they were trying to portray him as just like an inexperienced parent who like which is true. He was just thrown into this. Like he doesn't know how to be a parent. So like, yeah, we can give him a little bit of a break like early on, but like it just never gets better. It never one time gets better.
Well, yes, as a parent, I totally understand now when sometimes I vent.
Yeah.
And I say about this issue and they're like, well, you just need to tell him blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's not going to work. Yeah. You know, I'm like, let's role play. Like, let's pretend I'm the kid.
Yeah.
Okay, you say that and then I say no, or so
you can't just be like, you're a warrior. Warriors don't lie.
Yeah. Always tell the truth. Okay. It's not that easy.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So yeah, when Troy's like, I think this is going to take more work. I understand that.
Yeah. It's just every time there's a Worf and Alexander episode, it is so difficult.
I actually wonder, I feel like Alexander, maybe this is like an unfortunate casualty of the whole like mixed race characters thing we talked about, but it's one of those things where I felt like they introduced Alexander and they thought this is going to be a really kick-ass story, which it was in Reunion. The whole thing, she comes back, they have a kid, oh my god, where's the father? And then they were like, okay, what do we do with this now?
What do we do with this child?
Yeah, Worf is a dad. Maybe we should bring this kid back. And so, yeah, he comes back that episode. He comes back with Lwaxana Troi and our laughing hour.
Yeah. And then DS9.
Yes. And then they bring Worf back for Deep Space Nine. And I feel like they were once again going, oh, shit. That's right.
I forgot. We forgot.
Alexander. And so when he's in Sons and Daughters.
Alexander.
It's been he said it like it's been 5 years.
Right.
And it's like, again, it's like, whoa, that's going on pretty long.
Yeah. Worf is just like a really bad absentee dad. It is just, it's like really, like he's like, has he gotten married at this point too?
No, because he comes back one more time for the episode where they get married.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And he's kind of like a little bit of the goofball as well. It's like, I remember he's in the Quarks and talking about like some like clumsy thing he did.
Yeah.
And kind of owning it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like even at the end of Sons of Daughters, it's like Worf doesn't yell at him once, and suddenly Alexander's like, "I'm gonna join the house of who is it, Martok?"
Martok.
Yeah. And it's kind of going back to Kyle Riker. It's like they play Anbo Jitsu, like the gladiator thing, and they have one moment where he's like, "How do you think I feel about you? I love you. Oh, happy music." And literally just with one line, it's like, everything's good again. We're ready.
Oh, so resolving like family trauma is that easy?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you just have to play one round of weird space ball sport, and then everything's fine.
Gladiator.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's
no.
I was even thinking about that because he does come back. Alexander does come back for the wedding, Worf's wedding, and it almost makes sense if they had sort of a warming up in Sons and Daughters, and then like before they get married, have it be established that they've been
working on their relationship.
Yeah, and then he joins the house. Like that would have been something to work up to.
Yeah.
By the way, I have to ask this question. I was thinking about this. Season 3 Picard. All of our favorites are back of TNG. I have 2 questions. One, are they going to bring up Alexander, even if it's just a throwaway line? What do you think? You got to answer.
No.
Okay.
That's what I think. I think that I don't think that he's gonna. I don't know. Maybe,
he's not even gonna be acknowledged,
or
like not even like a photo on a dresser or anything.
Okay, maybe that.
Okay, then the next question. The next question was gonna be, is he alive or dead?
Oh my god!
Maybe
he's dead.
I know.
Maybe he's dead because we've seen in the trailer that Worf's like.
I haven't seen the trailer. Oh, sorry. No, wait, I have, but like not very much.
Okay. Worf is like, I'm a pacifist, and then Riker's like, we're all gonna die. And it's a cute little soundbite.
I haven't seen that
in the trailer, and that's what makes me think maybe Alexander's dead.
No, that's interesting though.
Yeah,
because I thought like that could be something interesting to bring back. And then I thought maybe they'll have even like one little throwaway line where it's like, have you talked to Alexander lately? No, going on.
He hates me still.
Okay, so we're saying they do not bring up Alexander in season 3.
Maybe I feel like there's not going to be a feature.
No, but like they didn't even have Hugh bring up Geordi.
That was,
you know what I mean?
That was ridiculous.
So I just, even in that sort of way where we were like, they could have done something. Like there could have just been one line about
how's Geordi? Hey, how's Geordi?
How's Geordi?
Oh yeah, I talked to him on Saturday.
Yeah. Okay, so we are going to say Alexander is ignored in season 3.
I just can't see any space for Alex. You know what I mean? Yes. There's so much other. The whole cast is back. The whole cast is back. Okay. I wanted to talk about Ensign Mariner and Captain Freeman.
Yeah, I was wondering if you're going to bring that up. I was also wondering if you're going to bring up Spock.
Oh yeah, shit.
But yes, I thought that you might have thoughts about Lower Decks.
Their relationship feels so authentic.
It does.
But it's also very shitty.
Yes, true.
Yes. The rebelliousness, the like wanting to just be like, fuck you, mom, like all the time is so realistic. The fact that she's such a thorn in her mom's side all the time is hilarious. But there's also still tenderness there in the way that it's written. Like there's also still love there, obviously. And it's in this most recent season, it really like develops sort of beautifully. But I want to say that I really enjoy that relationship a lot. It is goofy as fuck and it is very entertaining. I thumbs up, approve of it.
Okay.
Enjoy it. Yes. I just wanted to, because like we haven't talked about like any new Star Trek parent-child relationships, and I wanted to specifically bring that one up because it's a new relationship and it is very central to Lower Decks. That,
yes.
You know, like the two of them being parent and child is very central to like a lot of plot points on the show. And I appreciate it a lot. And I think it's very funny. I enjoy it. That's it.
Okay.
How do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, I agree. I've only season 1. Was it season 1? Yeah. So, I mean, I think they were kind of letting that relationship marinate. And of course, it has a lot of the humor comes from it because the whole idea is that she has been kind of moved from ship to ship. And they're finally like, okay, you're stuck with her.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I was wondering, though, because like we know Sarek and Spock's, is Spock's dad and Spock's another one with mixed parents. I feel like you're more of a TOS person than me.
Yeah, and Amanda Grayson.
Yeah,
his
so
mom.
That's right. So I was just like kind of curious if you had thoughts about that.
Yeah, and then also they are technically adoptive parents to Michael Burnham.
Oh God, that's right.
As well, all of that together. And then Michael Burnham's mom, actual biological mom, shows up on Discovery and their relationship. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a whole web. It's a whole little web.
And Michael kind of has like another surrogate mom in the captain.
In Captain Giorgio.
Who's
Michelle Yeoh.
Dead, but also wears evil
Yeah, it's a
evil
whole,
mom. Evil mom, but not quite evil. I don't know. I have to watch.
I wouldn't call it a traditional family.
Yes, exactly. Non-traditional Star Trek families.
I would be down to talk about Sarek because I think he's not a good dad. I don't know if this is like them just trying to be like, this is what Vulcans are like.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. Like we know Vulcans who are not cold all the time, and he always came across, especially when talking about Spock, very cold. Except for the moments at his death when Picard is there with him and he's like, I love Spock,
Yes, which we talked about, he has to find out his dad died from Picard.
Can y'all...
Picard almost had a better relationship with
Sarek than Spock did.
Yeah.
Can we not wait until our last breath to tell people that we love them? Come on. It's that, please. It's heartbreaking. I know that it's good television. I know that I understand that. But like, man, it really hurts. Spock is the character in Star Trek that has the most screen time. Like that we have the most backstory on, that the most different actors have played him. He has shown up over and over and over and over again in different permutations. We have so much material on this character. And in all of that material, his relationship with his father is really tense.
Yeah.
And not close. His relationship with his mother is different. He still has a strained relationship with her just because of his relationship with being mixed Vulcan and human. Because he grew up on Vulcan, because his dad was like, you got to choose. You got to choose, are you Vulcan, are you human?
Well, and we even talked about that little the Space Cats episode we did, the animated one.
Yeah.
And adult Spock travels through time and talks to his younger self. And he's like, you see parts of you that are your mom and that embarrasses you or scares you. And that seems to, it's almost like his dad is tense with Spock and doesn't really want to fully embrace Spock, and Spock in return doesn't really want to fully embrace his mom.
Yeah. I think because of the pressure that he feels from Sarek, he wants to be as Vulcan as possible to make his father proud. And when he sees things in himself that remind him of his mother, even though he loves his mother deeply, he sees those things as flaws because his humanness gets in the way of his Vulcanness. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of Unification, where he like really talks about that having both of these things is what makes him stronger, like that always makes me cry because I feel those things in myself as well, like having just backgrounds in two different cultures and having some of those things feel like they conflict inside of me, but then knowing that my singular experience is beautiful and does make me stronger and does make me who I am.
Yeah, it makes you unique too.
Yes, exactly. But it's the whole like overcoming adversity thing that makes you stronger thing. When I'm still like, man, Sarek, like you could have not been a dick to your kids. Like, you also could have
Yes.
not. You also could have not been a dick to your kids, and they would have turned out good too. Like, it is not because you were expecting so much from them that they are doing well. You know, it's man.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this before too, or early Star Trek, especially the Vulcans, because we talked about this a little bit with Strange New Worlds, about how they're kind of exploring the Vulcans in a different way, which is really,
I love,
really interesting. And so I think Sarah harkens back to the old way of writing, or an older way, of writing
a
Vulcans.
pre-Tuvok way.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And Tuvok's a dad too.
Oh God, we kind of skipped Voyager, but.
Yeah. The only Voyager character I can think of to talk about would be B'Elanna's dad, and fuck that guy.
Yeah, Harry.
We talked
Harry's
about him.
Got loving parents. They're a little. Why are you still an ensign?
Yeah, they're very Asian parents.
Seven's parents, I think, are a little screwed up for taking her up on that trip.
Yeah, definitely. But like, I don't know. We talked about B'Elanna's dad. In the hybrids episode. We all know B'Elanna's dad sucks. We don't get any baby Paris Torres is born in the very last episode.
Oh God, that's right, they're parents. Yeah, and she goes through the whole trying to alter out the Klingon DNA.
Yeah, and we did talk about that in the hybrids episode too. That episode is very uncomfortable for me. I know other people with mixed race backgrounds have different feelings about that episode than I do. I hate it.
Oh.
I hate it.
I can see why.
Yeah, I hate it a lot. It's very, but I can also see, I mean, it's another one of those, like Julian's parents, like, we're trying to do right by our kid. I don't know. It's under the guise of, because it all is coming from like personal insecurities that you're projecting onto your child.
That's true.
You're not actually like, it's not like, I want to make sure that my child who can't walk has a wheelchair so that they can get around. Like, it's not like that. It's like, I want to change fundamentally who my child is biologically, so that they are not what I think of as weak.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or weird, or
whatever it is.
Or cranial ridges.
Usually trying to spare the trauma that the parent went through.
Yeah. I mean, you could also argue, I guess, that like Janeway and Seven have a parent-child relationship in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Definitely a mentor thing going on. It's almost like hard to touch upon everything.
Yeah. And like we really also never see Ensign Wildman and Naomi Wildman. Naomi is always with Neelix. Like you never see them together as parent and child. Like even in that one episode that they're both actually in, she's like away and Neelix is trying to like make Naomi feel better. It's not really there's no real,
or she's a Seven.
Yeah. Oh, there is another one in New Star Trek to talk about.
Okay.
Dr. Mbenga.
Oh, I've only seen that one episode where you find out he's a parent. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. His daughter is very sick, and he's keeping her in the transporter buffer to keep her alive longer so that he can find a cure for her disease.
Reads her a bedtime story, and like that was hard for me. I think I cried at the end of that episode.
I'm gonna cry right now thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like the connection between those two actors is really beautiful. That is beautifully written and heartbreaking. I love that, and I love the storyline. I'm excited for you to see more of that.
So much I have to do.
But like more parent-child relationships that are like that. Like that one is like, that is really more, I am trying to do right by my child.
Yeah. Speaking of that, perfect segue if I'm not interrupting you. It's funny we're talking about this. I'm like, I have to go pick up my kids from daycare soon. Speaking of Star Trek parents, the one episode I did, one of the ones I thought I want to remind myself what this episode was the one where Picard thinks he has a son.
Oh, I was thinking about that this morning.
Yeah, it's called Bloodlines. I think it's one of the last episodes. It's like season 7, 3 or 4 episodes before All Good Things. And
this Ferengi trying to.
Yes. Yeah. And so in the episode, and it's funny because my memory was a little bit off. I wanted to see, because in that episode, Picard basically learns that he has like a 20-something son. And the reason it finds out is because, the Ferengi are like, you killed my son, I'm going to kill yours. You thought you could hide him. And he's thinking, what the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah.
And then he's led to believe that a old fling of his from the past, that like she got pregnant and had a son.
And never told him. And
boy, that happens a lot in Star Trek.
Yeah, why? People just
But anyway, so he suddenly has like a 23-year-old son named Jason.
with very 90s hair.
Yes, that guy is so 90s.
He's so 90s.
Yes.
The like floppy 90s hair. Oh my God.
If you were a kid or a teen in the 90s and a guy, you had this haircut at some point. Everyone did. But yes. And I kind of thought that my memory was that Picard was a little bit more unsure and kind of a little too buttoned up. But I actually, watching it again and paying more attention to his dynamic as a dad, I was like, Picard's doing a really good job.
Yeah, and I feel like Patrick Stewart plays it very perfectly. Like,
Yes.
like that Picard would be like, oh shit, like how do I children, already we know I am uncomfortable.
Like disasters, the elevator.
Yeah. Where he's like, what do I do? How do I relate to this person? Like, how do I, like...
Yeah.
Is he like me? Does it matter? Like,
what am I supposed to do? But
right. Like, and then, him climbing up the rock thing with him and like actually having bonding time. It's very sweet.
Yes. But Picard handles it in a very respectful, mature, and I think kind of like cautious way, because he's also trying to, he's much more concerned about Jason.
Yes.
Than he is of himself.
Yes.
And if you had asked me, I would have guessed that he was more about like putting the blinders on and oh God, because we just talked about Picard not being very vulnerable and so and he's this
very
lovely,
thoughtful in this episode.
Yes, and he has a lovely conversation with Crusher. I thought that was very well written.
Yeah.
And as a parent, I felt like that was a very realistic conversation.
Yes.
For both of them, and where she basically admits like, we don't know what we're doing. we just got to be patient. But
another reason why we love Bev so
Yeah.
much. Man, Beverly Crusher. I cannot wait for season 3 of Picard. I'm so excited.
At one point he is like, Jason seems like a very independent person. I think he just wants me to leave him alone. And then he realizes on his own that, that's not what he should do, that he should be there and stuff. And it actually ends up in a very pleasing, emotional place. And then we find out that it's all been a trick and no, he's not Picard's son. Ta-da! Yeah, there's a lot of family stuff that goes on the last season of TNG. Like Geordi's mom, I think, is season 7.
Yeah.
Isn't it like Worf's adoptive brother?
Yeah, that episode where he kidnaps that whole culture and beams them into the holodeck and then forces the Enterprise to find a new planet for them, and also impregnates Cassidy Yates.
Well, when you put it that way. Jeez.
Yeah. There is actually one other episode in which Picard is a dad, and that's The Inner Light.
Oh, you're right.
When he is actually a dad to his actual son.
That's right. With, I guess it would have been Wendy, whatever the... Yeah. He's been married like I think 3 times.
Yeah.
Not that that's like, I'm not throwing shade or anything.
Yeah.
But it was one of the producers, right? That he got married to, his second
wife.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, and he actually, doesn't he play... I thought his grandson was also played by someone who he's actually related to. Remember, he's crawling on the ground with the baby, and he's like, "Time to put on your sun protection." And they made him look super old. Which now, every time I put on sunscreen every day, I think of Grandpa Picard in Inner Light being like, "Time to put on your sun protection." So another thing where like TNG was like, isn't this crazy? People are gonna put sunscreen on every day in the future, and it's like, that's really what happens.
Yeah, it's really what happens. It's really what happens. Our atmosphere is thinning. It is true.
Yeah,
we know this. I mean, there's really not much to talk about in that episode. We all have seen The Inner Light a million times, but I just wanted to bring up that it is adorable that his actual son is playing his son. And I really enjoy that. And he's not actually Picard in that episode.
True.
He is living someone else's life in that episode.
But he's very much got the mentality that he is Picard.
Yes.
So he has to like let go of that and then come into this role of
being a good dad.
Yeah. To children that he like, I guess he doesn't have, he just has the wife, and then they start a family. Yeah.
Parents.
Parents just don't understand. What's that song?
Parents just don't understand.
The Will Smith song.
Yep.
We would play that, but we would get flagged for
copyright. Who is
copyright.
your favorite parent?
Oh my God, Jesus Christ, Ducat.
Ducat is your favorite parent?
We didn't talk about Ducat.
Ducat sucks.
Ducat sucks.
I will say We just said Worf is the worst, but no. Dukat is the worst.
No one takes Dukat's crown as worst Star Trek dad. He literally tried to shoot his daughter.
Kill his child. He tried to kill his child, and then he just like fucking psychologically manipulated her for years
and kept her around probably for his own ego. So like no one, and then
used her as a scapegoat after she died to be like, I'm crazy. Like, fuck you, Dukat. Dukat is so bad and so like he's so like deliciously evil.
He is. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about Dukat many times. He tries to shoot his kid, hunt down a kid he hasn't seen in years, and just kill her in cold blood. And he changes his mind, but that doesn't stop the fact that he almost did it.
Oh, can I just say my most favorite shitty Dukat thing with Ziyal? When he buys Kira that dress and then she throws it back in his face and then he pretends like he got it for Ziyal.
Yes, we've talked about the dress moment, but we haven't talked about that. Where he's like, it's a dress for you.
It's for you. It's gonna fit you for sure.
I know. That's the one thing I was thinking of is like, how do you know this is her size?
Do you see Kira's body? Do you see how little and thin and slim and she is?
And I love how she's like, you can be so thoughtful.
Oh, and you're just like, sweetheart, no, he's terrible.
Yeah,
that is one of the. I mean, we know that I feel this way about Ziyal, and Kira is a better parent to Ziyal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's definitely. I mean, we talked about her, and
she's a mentor.
And what? No, but I would totally put her in that. I would put her as the Larissa of Star Trek. Like she's like the best auntie, you know?
Yeah, she's a good auntie.
Yeah. I mean, but I think it's more than just like a mentor thing.
Yeah.
Like she is, for me, she really is like a surrogate parent to Ziyal.
Well, yeah, because she cares about her so deeply, but she also sees that she needs to be parented.
Yes.
Like she needs that, and she also knows that like if Dukat is that person, that man is a psychopath.
Yes.
Fucking psychopath with the longest neck you've ever seen. Oh man, it is actually like really cool to see that like sort of comparison to that, like the best Star Trek dad and the worst Star Trek dad are on the same show.
Oh, who did we say was the best?
Sisko.
Oh yeah.
And like he's like his relationship with Jake being so strong and beautiful and vulnerable and like
That's
kind
true.
and stuff, and then Dukat like just manipulating the shit out of his daughter all the time, and her just being like lovey-dovey, like hearts in her eyes for him constantly, and it's so painful, it hurts. Like she's just been like gaslit like fucking crazy her whole life.
Well, we talked about how Dukat wants love and approval any way he can get it, and if it's through his daughter, who he probably treats more like a pet than an actual person.
That's it. He treats her like a pet.
Yes,
for sure. He's never thinking about what's best for her.
Oh God, no,
never. Fucking Dukat.
But best, I mean, for me, it's a tie between Sisko and Crusher, and I think you're right. I think Sisko, just because the writers were able to do so much more.
Yeah,
you know, we get little glimpses and breadcrumbs of the Crushers together, and obviously Crusher's a good mom, and they have a very good relationship. Wesley doesn't seem like much of a troublemaker, so
no, he's a nerd.
he's just like wants to get his projects done on time.
He's like, Mom, stop.
I mean, I would have to say, we didn't even talk about Sisko's dad. But yeah,
I love him.
Which I love him too, but again, it's like we have like a weird thing where it's like, oh, you never told me that my mom's not my mom. We have another like, you are, or like, oh, I have a sister. Like, come on, Lwaxana. Yeah, there's a lot of like, I just thought I'd keep that from
fucking
you.
Family secrets and shit.
Yeah. So anyways, like I think it has to go to Sisko just because they did so much of that relationship in Deep Space Nine.
Snaps to Avery Brooks for making that happen. Like it is palpable. It's beautiful. Like it is one of the most beautiful parent-child relationships ever on television, I feel like. It's like a beautiful example of like what a relationship between a parent and a child can be like. And I adore them as a family so much.
A couple more honorable mentions. Don't worry, real quick. For honorable mentions for shitty parents though.
Okay.
Who's the older Borg kid? I always call him like Ichabod.
Oh,
Icheb's
parents.
parents.
They suck.
Who basically had him, and then they were going to sacrifice him to the Borg to upload a virus.
They had him to do that with him.
Yes, exactly. Like that was the whole purpose. Yeah. Fuck that.
That was awful.
And then speaking of Deep Space Nine, Garrick's dad, Tane, for never acknowledging him. I just remember the death scene. He's like, I don't have a son. And Garrick's just like, Father, you're dying in a prison of Jem'Hadar prison. Yeah. Garrick's just like, will you please just admit you're my father? So
poor fucking Garrick. So I feel like we're in agreement for best and worst. I feel like there's no
one can take Dukat. I mean, how can you justify anyone being worse than Dukat?
Yeah, Dukat's literally the worst.
Yeah.
It is. It's so much fun how bad he is. Like it's it is so much because he's also like so layered and like you kind of understand like why he's so fucked up. Like
there's layers to the badness.
Yes, that's true, but it's all so deliciously terrible. Blech, what a dick.
That's hard.
So we have winners and we have losers.
Yay!
We have talked about the Star Trek parents. This is great.
You know what time it is?
What time is it?
Alexander Rozhenko. Alexander Rozhenko. Alexander Rozhenko.
Sorry.
Alexander Rozhenko.
We're sorry. We're so sorry, Alexander.
Find us in the collective at intothewormhole.show, on Instagram at intothewormhole.podcast. Into the Wormhole is brought to you by We Own This Town.
Where he's just like talking to the goo and like looking at the goo and it's so cartoon.